Okay, so we currently have our environment open here. I'm going to go ahead and take this off just so you can see it a little bit better. I want to take a minute to thank Marty Fitzgerald for making this look really nice. And if we look at our environment file, go to Arnold, open render view, this is going to render really nicely. So let me get this render over here. It's a pretty simple environment, Sky Dome here, but it's going to take it a second to start generating our texture files. But once it does, you'll see what this looks like. And then this is another piece that we'll be bringing in later. We have a model, which was this piece here. I got this from SyncSketch, and so you will get the information on who to credit for these models as well. And then these environments, Marty Fitzgerald generated. I think this may be the sand. No, it's not the sand material. But this is maybe this a sand material that was purchased as well, or generated by Marty One. I'm not for sure which one he's using here. So this is the scene that you're getting, and this is if we go look at this is actually not a super complicated scene. It's a close-up terrain, right? So this is your ground shape. So if your objects are racing along the ground, you would want a close-up shot of that ground. This is a material that will hold up to a close-up shot. Whereas some of these materials, where it's having to cover such a large object, they may not hold up as well if you're super close on them. So I hit. Let me get in here closer. We may start to see like some pixelation or something on the renders of these. And so, that may not be the case. You may have enough detail, but we don't want to start seeing any blurriness or pixelation. So you have to be careful about where you're putting your camera, where you're putting your cars. Right? So these are just three pieces, and these kind of divided them up into your ground, your mid-range mountains. So you'll see ground, mid, and then stuff that's in the distance. Right? So mid-range means, you can get kind of close to it, but probably not have your camera right up next to it. The ground, you can be relatively close to it, and it'll still hold up. This mid-range stuff is for the stuff in the far distance, and they're also going to be taller. Right? So we just have three of them in here right now, but recognize that folder we were looking at earlier, when we were looking in our Mars Chase scenes folder, under environment, we got these environment pieces. Okay? So this is just an example starting point for you. You don't have to use this exactly like it is, but we can use it for some shots. What we're going to do is go to File, and we can import in new pieces of environment to create this or change this how we want to. Right? So in our environment, I'm going to go to my environment pieces, and I'm going to choose like mid-ground 5. Under use namespaces, I like to turn off or check this bottom one, and that way we don't go messing with the names too much. It tries to keep them the same as they are in the source file. And so now I got this second mid-ground shot, right? And you'll see that they're pretty dense. These are some pretty heavy files, and that's why they're not all in this one scene. Is because if they were, it would be really heavy. Right? Now, when you get it, you're going to see stuff like this. Like, oh, it's not lining up perfectly. Well, no, it's not. We can do like some pushing it down, but what you're going to do to try to make this work, and you don't want to push it too far, so we're going to go to Vertex, we're going to select a vertex, and then hit B, and then scale up your brush size really big. And what this is going to allow us to do is to sort of reposition these to where we can get our scenes sort of a range to where it's not blowing through as bad. So it's going to be a little slow because these are pretty heavy. Maybe something like that. Let's just see how that looks. Object mode. Now from here, it may be hard to tell how that looks. So we will construct us a camera shot here, maybe something like this. And then again, I will render and see how that lines up. So this is where you're going to sort of build your environments for some of your shots. Okay. How this connects together is going to very heavily depend on your needs for every shot. Right? Some of these shots may not have a ton of these background images on them. Right? These mountains in the background may not be there. You may not need those. You may want to do like a closer shot. So, so I can compare this now. My render, I'm not sure what's happening right here in the foreground. It looks like we're getting a little close to the edge of our sky dome or something right here on the edge. So we'll have to work that out a little bit. I'm not for sure if that's what's happening or not. So yeah, we're just going to keep working on these until we sort of build the environment we need for each shot. Keep in mind, there's nothing wrong with just deleting the environment pieces that this came with, and you can just sort of build your own from scratch by putting those pieces together. And again, it's going to depend on the shots that you want to happen in your chase. Okay. So once we've got this built, right? Let's say this is the environment that I wanted for shot 3, right? And let's say shot 3 is going to be my car zooming through in front of this piece right here, right? Probably want to change that just a little bit. Maybe we'll even probably not do much with my ground plane. Yeah, let's say I want it to be from like here. It's funny, my building is floating. I'll lower my building a little bit, right? So it's touching the ground. And what I want is the car to zoom past from behind the building and then like come through this way, right? Let's say that's my shot. And what I'm wanting is essentially it goes behind the building here, comes through in front of me, right? So if this is where I want it to, the environment that I'm wanting, I'm going to save this, save scene as, and I don't want to be very specific, right? I may need this for more than one shot, right? So let's just call this high environment _A, right? Save as. Okay, now it's time to animate. I'm wanting to set up my scene to animate. This is not the scene I'm going to animate in. Okay, remember we're going to do referencing, and I'll show you in a few minutes why that's going to be important. So I'm going to go File, New Scene, and then I'm going to save this scene, save scene as, because there's nothing in here, right? I'm going to save this under my anim folder, and let's call this shot 3 _ 000. You know what? Just for safety's sake, I sometimes do like shot 3 _ 0003.mb. And I'll hit save as. And what I want to do is I want to start referencing in my my objects. File, create reference. So for shot 3, I may know that I need environment A. Again, under here, I want to make sure this bottom one is checked, merge into selected namespace, hit reference. And so now I should get my environment. And if I hit 6, yeah, I'm getting materials and everything, right? And I'll also want to bring in my cars. File. Let's go ahead and open up my reference editor here. And I'll just say this button right here. It'll create a new reference. I'm going to choose my car, so I'll choose my high green car. Again, make sure this is set, but I think it stays checked. Yep. Reference, so it's right there. And then I'll also create a reference for my red car. So they're both in here now, right? And I'm just going to move them around with the group that is containing their mesh, because there's actually a little bit more we're going to do with the way these are constructed later. So I'll move this back to here. Right? And then what I would want to do is probably set up a camera. Okay, so I get my my view here. I'm not going to do it just yet. I'll set up something here, and I'll go to Create, Cameras, Camera. And then I like to be able to see more than one camera at a time. What I may do is I can go to Perspective Camera. This is what my camera 1 is seeing right now. We'll post a Rocket Wagon there. Again, Rocket Wagon is another purchased model, and I'll get you the file information for that. So this is my camera, and really this is where we may have a little back and forth between our environment shot and our environment shot, or our environment scene and our animation scene. So I'll get my camera set up here, right? And I'm not going to do anything too permanent yet. I'm just kind of getting an idea, right? And I'll call this Shot 3 Cam. And then I can kind of briefly, just to see if this is working, this may not be permanent, I can move my cars over here. Now the reason I like having the two cameras instead of rendering from camera 1 is because now if I wanted to, I could tear off a copy of this. So I have this as a second camera that I can look at. I could even make it much smaller if I wanted to. And then if I want to, I can go back here to look through my perspective. And with the green car selected, and I'm in my perspective view, I could see what this is going to look like as my car comes around here, right, rotates, and goes by this way, right? So I'm not ready to animate these yet, and what I'm actually grabbing to animate on these cars is not what I want to animate in the long run, so I'm just testing this out to see is this scene set up the way I want it for the shot, right? Because if I change my mind and I'm like, this isn't how I wanted this shot to be constructed, turns out I really want my camera way up here, well, you can start to see that this environment isn't going to work for that now, and I got to pull this up and clean up the angle, right? I'm also seeing like maybe I wanted the shot from here, but I'm starting to see this little hump, right? So we got to kind of hide the man behind the curtains a little bit. Let's go back to my previous camera angle because I kind of liked it where I was. There we go. So this is a nice, like, simple one. If this is where we think we want to be, just so I don't accidentally mess up this camera, I'm just going to click this little button here to lock it. All right. So I want to talk a little bit more in just a few minutes about how we're going to optimize this referencing for the different ways you may be working, but I'm going to show you one more thing before we do. Let's say this shot 3, runs from frame 50 to frame 120, right? And let's say for this very same shot, you decide you also want to do shot 6 from this camera, or maybe not from this camera, but at least from this animation setup, right? And shot 6, you decide, we got 50 to 120, and then shot 6, maybe you want to go from 200 to 300. My 2 cents, I never set any keyframes on frame 1 or 0. I always leave maybe that first 50 to 100 frames free. So we can mess that around. Maybe do 100 to 200 is shot 1, and 250 to 300 is, shot 3 and shot 6, right? So Organization-wise, there's a tool built into Maya that may be helpful for this. We can go to File and Game Exporter, which that does not sound like the thing you need right now, right? That does not sound like what you're planning on doing. Like you're not going to export anything into a game. This is actually just a tool I use because of this animation clips tab. And what this allows us to do is set time ranges that we can use for multiple files. Now, you may decide you want to do every shot in a different Maya file, or there may just be a nice efficiency reason. Maybe you have two shots that are very similar that keep cutting back and forth to each other to build tension. And for whatever reason, you may have more than one shot in a scene. So I'm going to create a new here, and I'm going to say this is shot 3, and this is going to be from frame 100 to frames 200. And then I'll add another one here, and we'll call this shot 6. And that one was from 250 to 300, right? But you know what, let's make that a little bit more space. Let's do 300 to 350. So the benefit of this is that I can quickly now jump back and forth between those two ranges of the timeline. So I can click this button, 100 to 200, I can click this button, 300 to 350. And so this is really handy for maintaining different sections of animation. If I hit this play button, it'll jump to it and hit play at the same time, right? So what that means is I can be watching it, and then I can quickly jump to the next one and watch the next one, right? And this allows me like a quick transition between the two. So this is a handy tool that I use in my sort of shot organization. What it's going to boil down to, though, is you are going to have to stay organized. Like, you are going to have to know which shots contain what. And really the best method for doing this is a spreadsheet. And I know that's not necessarily what you wanted to hear, right? But let's look really quickly. I'll just drag this spreadsheet in because it's, what just happened? I'll drag this spreadsheet in because it's one you're familiar with. Like, I use spreadsheets for a lot of stuff. So let's just create a new tab down there so you understand kind of how to do this. And this is a Google Sheets, but you could use Excel, right? So you're going to need to know several things, right? Like let's say shot 1, right? Maybe you want a description of this. This is long shot of both cars from behind, right? And then here you may want to know like which environment are you using. You could be using high can't spell environment underscore A. Actually, I think it's high dash environment underscore A. Right. And then this last thing here, what I like to do is make a sort of a range of stuff for myself. Like, is it blocked? Is it blocking plus? Is it polished? Does it have the effects on it? Right. So to do this, I'm just going to slide this down to the next row here. I can use this little bracket here to get a new section there. And these can be my titles. Right, so we'll call this shot. Nope. Just shot. And then this can be description. And then this can be environment file. And then this could be blocking. Now let's do layout blocking. Let's just skip blocking plus and do splining polish, smoke, render. Now, how I use this is I very quickly give myself a color scheme. Right, so this is just to make this more pleasant to look at. Select everything, go to my fill color, I choose alternating colors, and then I just pick one of these. So let's do that. And then just keep this open like all the time. Like you will need it because the biggest portion of this and you could also, if you want to, you could add like a section in here like the save file name, which may be shot 3 in the anim folder, right? Or you could also add, if this is a better way for you to keep up with this, your frame range, right? And so you could say 200 to 300. Right? So all of this is just a place for you to keep information. It takes a couple seconds to set it up, but then after you get it, I promise this is one of the most beneficial things you will do in terms of sort of self-organization. So what I do with this is let's pretend like I had a whole bunch of shots that were just the same. Right? That's funny. What I do with this is as I finish these shots up, I just change the color of this box. Right? So how I usually will start off is I'll highlight all of those. I'll make them red. Right? Red means danger, it needs to be done. Right? And as I go through here, maybe I spend like a couple hours and I do the layout of these 3. I can mark those as green. Right? That's where I'm at. Maybe the next day I block in 2 more green. Right? Let's say a week down the road, what this may start to look like is maybe this, and then maybe this shot was really easy to fix, so I do something like that. Right, and so like this is how we tell when our files are getting done, like our shots are getting done. Now I always also like to add a notes out here. So like maybe on this one I will say need to fix bobble, right, and fin, tail fin or something. So if there's something I need to do before splining will be finished, then maybe I would mark splining as yellow, right? Just so I know, like, okay, I need to come back to that before I can call that finished, and this is my note on why. This will start to get very cluttered, and so the cool part about this is you can right-click on this, and you can actually just hide this column and start a new notes column, right? So you didn't lose your notes, they're just not in here anymore, they're just hidden. To get those back, you just click that thing there to open them back up. So this is my sort of organizational structure that I've been using for years. I would say one more thing I would put in here might be a rigging tab, right? So you may decide that you want, that's not the direction I want to go, in between here, rigging, right? The reason is because you may not need the same rig for every shot, right? And so you may want to do like a rigging file for each of them, right? If we have a close-up shot where we're looking at one of the wheels and we need the wheel to be jittering because it doesn't have wheels, one of the fenders, and since we're close on that fender, we want it to look like it's got some shake or some bobble to it from the vibration, right? Well, you may not need that rig for everything. So what you may end up doing is making a different rigged version of the car. So we'll come back to that here in just a few minutes and talk about that a little bit more. So we'll go ahead and stop this video here. It went a little longer than I wanted to, but hopefully this has been helpful. So thanks.